Hey there! We just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you who have listened, shared, engaged, and sent us love. It means the world to know that we've had the chance to spread even just a little bit of knowledge, insight, and encouragement to you along your health journeys.
If you'd like to support the work we're doing, we've created a Patreon page where you can earn some exciting rewards, because being a part of the HIP team isn't just a hobby, it's a lifestyle.
Contributions start as low as $1 a month, with each level offering a number of super fun perks, like monthly bonus episodes, Q&As, a portrait drawn by our own in-house artist, and even personal chats with the Health It's Personal team.
We created this podcast so that everyone can have the chance to access informative, inspirational, and insightful stories, and your support is a huge step in us reaching those who need it most. We wish we could give you all a big hug, but hopefully this will suffice, at least until we're allowed to hug again.
If you love what you hear or are as passionate about health as we are, please visit patreon.com/thehip podcast. That's patreon.com/the HIP podcast. We couldn't do this without you, so thank you again, and thanks in advance for joining our ever-growing HIP family.
Hello everyone! Our conversation today was with the wonderful food and fitness guru, Paige Hillebert, a chef based in New York City who has studied the art of natural and plant-based cooking. She shares with us her insight, advice, and kombucha wisdom.
Ooh, I know, I love it.
She also talked a little bit about how everyone kind of works within their own personal needs and backgrounds when it comes to their own diets, and how we can work with those backgrounds as well as all the stuff that's available locally and working within our communities to make sure that we are having a positive influence and impact on ourselves and our bodies, as well as on the environment and the people around us.
I love that. I know, so good. It's a lot to think about.
So much.
Oh, I know.
To consider.
You know, we talk to all these amazing people who have so much knowledge, and sometimes it feels like a full-time job figuring out what works for our bodies and what works for the environment and what works for our community. But what I love about her is she's very practical in her wisdom and behavior. And there are small things that you can do to make an impact locally and with your mind and body.
For sure. It can be so easy to just kind of get into that mood, like, look, man, I just want to eat. Like, I just want to make a quick, easy meal, but...
I think it's so exciting to be reminded that there are ways that you can help your body and your mind and do it from scratch and kind of take joy in these cooking projects that we all always put off because we have such a crazy schedule.
For sure.
And especially if you're focusing on your health or your food allergies, your gut health, and you're cutting out some things and you go to the store and you're like, gosh, what can I eat from all these packaged foods? But Paige is so smart because she's like, dude, I don't have room to do all these fermentation projects, but I do them because it's enjoyable and so good for me and my gut health. So I like find space. I know at least in my apartment in New York, all of my pots and pans are above my refrigerator. So I have to get on a stepladder to cook. And then, you know, if I want some specialty tool, I keep it inside a picnic basket on the top shelf, like in the most ridiculous places, because there's no room for anything. So
right.
There's no room, there's no time, but you got to get creative and you got to just find your enjoyment in it all.
I loved how we talked about how it can work, you know, if you're in a very small space, if you don't have all that space to meal prep and put all of those meals for the whole week in there in your fridge, or if you don't have places to store all the cool projects that you're doing, all the things you're making from scratch, or even, like you said, easy access to just your pots and pans can be a challenge.
Yeah,
it's so helpful even if you don't live in the middle of New York City. But if you have a limited space anywhere, or just kind of giving you creative ideas for any type of situation you're in, just to kind of do your best and get started in making your own stuff.
Well, this might be a weird connection, but college students, I think, often feel they don't have the space or the resources to eat healthy. And you know, that's a time when you really need your brain to be full on, like, focused working properly. And you need to feel good, and your mental health needs to be on point.
For sure.
So knowing that there's a way to be resourceful, slow down, use the community kitchen, put stuff under your bed, you know.
Put your kombucha pot on top of your bookshelf.
Or whatever. There are ways that you can have good foods for you and feel your best. Yeah, I love that she talks about the CSA share. That's been such a fun part of my life. In Arizona, there was a local farm that would drop off fruits and vegetables. And then when we lived in Chapel Hill, there was one that brought the ugly produce to your house. So anything that wouldn't be sold. And
Right.
so it felt like a fruit and vegetable rescue, you know?
Yeah.
And so like you were doing something good and not wasting food. So I love that so much. It was a really fun thing for us when Max was small because he loves to eat healthy food, but only when it's fun or convenient.
I was going to say, for those unfamiliar, CSAs are community-supported agriculture, and you work with local farms and farmers in your community, and it's like a cooperative effort where they put together care packages of all the veggies and things that they have. And it's really great.
It's a nominal fee too. So generally it's cheaper than you'd be able to buy it at the grocery store.
For sure is, yeah.
You get what you get. So whatever's in season, whatever they have, they'll
Yep.
split it up among the boxes. And that's kind of half the fun.
Yeah. And, you know, because it forces you to come up with these new cooking projects or these new recipes. And Paige had a lot of great cookbook suggestions that allow you to step outside the recipe.
Right.
A lot of things people struggle with in the kitchen is having confidence and knowing that, oh, I don't have this, I can use this, or whatever the case may be. So where you can get the ugly fruits and vegetables, I feel bad calling them ugly.
I wasn't very nice.
The fruits and veggies that do not adhere to standard beauty.
Yes. Beauty standards.
Expectations.
You know, like Imperfect Foods, Misfit Market. I think such a cute name.
Misfit Market.
I've always wanted to go to one of those supermarkets that only sell the imperfect.
I didn't know that existed.
They're in certain areas of the world. Like, I'm not sure exactly. I've just seen cool articles on them on the internet.
It's like the island of misfit toys.
Yeah. Misfit veggies.
That tomato just wanted to be a dentist.
Oh.
We'll save that for our Christmas episode.
Perfect. And I loved how she just helped us understand that it can be really accessible. Like you were saying, experimenting in the kitchen with those recipes, just thinking outside the recipe, especially if you don't have those ingredients with you. It doesn't mean we have to shut down. Just like we were talking about in previous episodes, like if I can't do 100% of it, I'm not doing any of it. But if you have enough, or you have certain substitutions and you're feeling a little creative and, adventurous, try your best to just substitute. And I guess I learned that from my dad. He would always, I don't know if it was confidence or if it was just laissez-faire attitude.
No, I think it is confidence.
Try whatever.
Yeah.
So sometimes he would experiment and it was like really good. And it was like things you would never consider putting into a recipe, and other times maybe not so much. It's like, what are we eating?
Yeah.
Dad.
But I do that too. Yeah. And certain people in the household might really love what I come up with sometimes, and sometimes it's like, I'm not a fan. But that's okay. Just try it, right?
So I lack confidence in the kitchen, and McKenna has become this really amazing cook, and she has all these experiences. And so I've noticed a confidence shift in her over the last few years, and it's been so fun to watch and to eat the food that she makes. But I aspire to have that confidence. We ate a lot of TV dinners when I was little.
Love a TV dinner, for the record.
Yeah, it was fun as a kid.
I love the brownies.
Yeah.
And the mac and cheese.
Yeah, and the corn.
Why is the corn so good? Yeah.
Too good. But it doesn't really lend itself to a cooking foundation.
We had so much fun with Paige, and I hope that listening to her will give you some confidence in the kitchen and remind you that you can do it yourself, and you can make healthy choices and make time for it in your day, and it can become a really fun part of your life if you want it to be. And if you just want your corn and your brownie microwavable meal, that's okay too. So grab a cup of tea or kombucha and enjoy.
Health is understanding what you need,
being informed, finding that balance of mental and physical,
building yourself a support system,
figuring things out on my own and not letting it hold me back.
You do kind of have to advocate for yourself.
Because health, it's personal.
Hi, Paige. Welcome. I know we're fascinated by your experience as a chef in New York City, and also as a fitness instructor and a lover of food. So I was wondering if you'd mind sharing with us your background in food and how your relationship with health has influenced your career path.
I guess I was always really interested in food. I liked to watch Food Network as a kid.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was a big Martha Stewart and Emeril Lagasse fan.
I like Martha Stewart.
I always really liked food, and I actually started working in restaurants when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
Honestly, since 16, I think maybe with some gaps here and there, I've been in the food industry, front of house, back of house, different versions.
That's cool.
Where did you start when you were 16? Was it just like a job as a 16-year-old, or did you have like a family with a restaurant? Or
Not right away. I actually had started, it's like one of my first jobs, just hosting a Mexican restaurant, and with a couple of friends from high school that were all there. So it was a local spot. So that was fun for a while. I think after that, then I did start working. I kind of had a mentor. There's a woman that ran a kolache bakery.
Okay, what's that?
Yeah, it's like a Czech pastry.
Oh.
There's a couple big Czech populations, obviously, in the United States. I know like Texas has a lot of kolache bakeries. We would get people coming in telling us where they had kolaches.
That's funny.
I don't think I've ever had one, actually. That sounds great.
Yeah, I didn't know what they were till she opened it up. It's like a sweet bread bun, and then it'll usually have a filling. There's more traditional ones like poppy seed and apricot, and then people put chocolate chip cream cheese and all kinds, but it's almost like you put a dip at the top.
Oh, sounds amazing.
So I worked with her for near the end of high school and into college. And she was definitely a mentor. It was such a small spot. There was maybe like 2 to 3 of us. So I got very close with her. And yeah, it was great seeing somebody owning their own business, and especially working with a woman owning a small business. But yeah, so I did that. And then I really wanted to go to culinary school, but I was hesitant because I knew I wanted to work in food, but I wasn't sure to what aspect, if I wanted to work in a food business. So I went to business school. I ended up staying in Kansas, where I'm from, and I went to business school. That was actually where I started teaching in fitness.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I grew up doing gymnastics and lots of competitive dance. And so when I went to college and wasn't doing any of all that, I missed that aspect of, being active and community. And so I started getting involved at the rec center a lot. And then I just found out about getting certified to teach, and I started teaching the end of my sophomore year of college, and I've been teaching ever since.
Cool. If you don't mind me asking, what did you teach back then? What did you get started with?
I'm honest, the same thing I'm teaching right now, which is kind of crazy. It's called Body Pump, which sounds very cheesy.
Right.
It's a barbell strength training class, basically.
so then what led you from business school to culinary?
So there was I feel like there's been a lot of, unintentionally, but kind of amazingly, there's been a lot of strong women. I feel like so far in my career, there was a woman in the town that I went to college in, that she had started a veggie burger, or she'd started a burger place. It was called Local Burger, and it was really great. They sold, you could get like bison burgers. I mean, it was very exciting for the small town that it was in, that you could get like a wide range of different types of burgers with different meat and local meat. But one of her big things was she made a house-made veggie burger.
Those are important. Yeah, because some places I'm like, no, thank you. But
Right, some places they have a veggie burger, but it's not a good option. But yeah, hers was delicious. And so she ended up, I think, right around the time that I moved to that town, she actually closed the burger place, and then they opened what is now called Hillary's Eat Well. But it's a frozen, they sell veggie burgers and they sell salad dressings and all kinds of things. Yeah, they launched there recently, and I went to work. I ended up interning with her my sophomore year of college. Kind of spiraled a lot of things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure. So then once you finished business school, did you work in kitchens right away, or did you go to culinary school right away?
So I went to culinary school pretty right away. I had been working front of house just in a cafe that was nearby throughout college, just because that was, working front of house was an easier schedule with a school. But the woman that started the veggie burger company, she had gone to Natural Gourmet Institute in New York, and she was kind of who had talked to me, just told me about it. I'd already wanted to go to culinary school, but with working for her, it's their veggie burger, it's all common allergen free, because she had sort of experienced a lot of health issues and had realized that she couldn't have gluten or dairy or soy or corn. And then that was sort of how she developed the product that there wasn't a lot of products out there at that time for people eliminating a lot of things.
And that tastes good.
Yeah, that tastes good. And it was all whole foods and it was all local ingredients and it wasn't a lot of like soy byproduct. It was just like millet and quinoa and locally sourced veggies and coconut oil. Yeah, so I was getting really excited and interested more in the natural food and health and wondering why I was in business school.
That's probably serving you well now, but you're
yeah.
like, this is boring.
In the moment, yeah, you might. How does that connect?
Yeah, it did. It worked out well. And I think working for her made me realize that I could do really interesting things with business and food that were positive and also good for the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, and more sustainable. So she told me about Natural Gourmet, and then I was kind of hooked on the idea of going there because it seems like everything I wanted to study and do with food, I didn't know was a school. So
yeah, I wouldn't have known that either. I think that's so interesting that they have a place that's focused on learning about those things. And so that's really exciting, especially now. I'm sure people are turning to that even more now.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about the school?
For sure. Unfortunately, for anybody that is finding out about it and interested, they did close last year.
Oh, no.
But they're still alive. It's just a different, they celebrated their 40th anniversary when I was there. Yeah, they were in Chelsea. It had started out of a woman's apartment and then sort of grown from there. And
that's cool.
It, like a lot of things in New York, yeah, their lease was up and was set to like double. The program is still alive and people could still do it. They sold their curriculum to ICE, International Culinary Education, that culinary school in the city.
The good ICE.
Yeah, the good ICE. Every time I say that, people make a horrible face and I forget that if you're not in food when you say ICE.
Yeah, well, it's funny because it's either ICE or CIA. And
Yeah.
you're like, what?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
It gets so confusing. But yeah, so it is now the Natural Gourmet Center of ICE.
Wow.
But it's great because they're here in New York and out in LA. They have the center as well. And pretty much all the instructors I had have moved over with the school. So it's still around. It just looks a little different and it's a different format. But they're big. It was very plant-based and majority vegetarian, but we did work with a little bit of animal protein, just chicken and shellfish and finfish. Their main focus wasn't so much just, I guess, maybe preaching a plant-based diet, but just focusing on whole foods, local, eating close to your traditions, eating closer to your environment, and kind of more sustainably.
Just thinking about where your food comes from.
Yeah, and kind of why we eat the way we do and eating with what makes sense for your body, your community, where you live, and the environment.
Being mindful.
And that's not something that a lot of people talk about. Yeah.
I know, because we just like throw stuff in our cart at the grocery store and yeah, it's insane.
Either you do, whatever is convenient or available, or even if you are doing like really healthy things, you want those exotic, it comes halfway around the globe and how
and
much.
The footprint of that item.
What's the footprint? Yeah.
I think about that all the time because I'll be like, okay, I really want really good olive oil because I implement that into my health routine. And so then I buy the Greek olive oil from Greece that's been shipped over. And it's like, why am I doing that? Like, what? Why?
Authentic.
Yeah. So there's ways to be mindful about the things that you're eating and the real reason that you're doing it.
Yeah, I think it was more of a bigger picture than I was anticipating. And the lessons or the things that they talked about more about eating what makes sense for you based on where you live and like your cultural background, like really was interesting to me and not something I had thought of. Like if you take somebody that maybe grew up in a really warm climate and was eating, lots of, like somebody that's from Hawaii, obviously they eat beautiful tropical fruits and lots of raw foods, and then to move somewhere like here where it gets really cold, maybe that diet wouldn't work anymore in this climate, and it's not serving your physical needs because you can't, drinking smoothies and eating raw foods all through the winter maybe doesn't feel good.
Yeah, or isn't go with your DNA or your makeup or something. I wonder if where you are born and what you do, does that sort of evolve into what your body needs and becomes, or is it adaptable?
Yeah, I think that's part of what they like to try to explore, and what they talked about is that maybe listening to your cravings. Like, I think cravings are usually a sign. Like, if you're craving something really salty or really sweet, it's also maybe a sign of an imbalance. It's part of your body's way of saying, like, hey, this is what I need, to function well and to feel at full capacity. And part of those cravings might your DNA, or kind of how you've the climate that you grew up in and the area of the world that you grew up in. And then I'm sure that adapts depending on if you change that.
So you learned all of these really amazing things and thought about food differently and thought about it as community based and also the needs of your body and all those things. Where did you find your niche in all of that?
I think for me, I was already very passionate about like community health and organizing around food. I had done while I was still in school. I had worked a lot with a food pantry and done some things with food recovery and food waste. It just made me more passionate and pay more attention to really trying to buy things local and looking at how I'm shopping and what I'm cooking and what I'm working with and what ecosystems that I'm involved in that it's affecting. So, yeah, I was already passionate about it, but then it gave me a lot of knowledge and tools to really try to adapt the things that I cared about into where I worked and the things that I bought personally to cook with and how that was affecting, local farmers and seasons and the people that live within my community.
That's cool. So, what are some things that we should be thinking about in terms of our communities? Maybe some things that we don't know and understand when we're at the grocery store. Can you think of a few things that might make us more educated, informed consumers?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's been the easiest for me to shop more locally and more seasonally is there's lots of great CSA shares.
Right.
I was more aware of when I was in Kansas first because there was just a lot of farms and things closer by. But I've been amazed at all the great CSA shares that are in New York since I moved here.
Yeah.
We had talked a little bit about those before, and it's really exciting that they're available, and I'd love to learn more about them personally. But
The community college in Arizona, Sean and I used to work together there. They had one that would deliver to students on campus, which I thought was so cool because that's a need for students as well to have fresh fruits and vegetables. And then the farmers, having that connection with the farmers and the education, I thought was really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. Also, the delivery aspect, because I feel like a student
Yeah.
being able to transport yourself is an issue in and of itself. So to get it to you breaks that barrier down. That's nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When it comes to sort of the plant-based cooking, I assume you still do a lot of that. I mean, I watch your Instagram stories, but I know that you're a food lover as well. What does that balance kind of look like in your life?
Yeah, so I guess I've never been completely plant-based or completely vegetarian, but sustainability is a big priority for me. And so I think when a lot of people talk about those diets, they also talk about that eating more plant-based or eating more vegetable focused helps decrease your footprint that you have. And I try to balance back and forth between eating more vegetable focused meals and trying to eliminate dairy in some of the things that I eat. And then when I do eat things with animal proteins and dairy, I try to buy more organic and more locally sourced if I can.
That's so great. And I'm sure that these steps that you're taking to be a good consumer as far as your environment goes are also benefiting you physically too, because I think we've all learned that having a balance with plant-based proteins and plant-based eating and adding that into your routine has physical positive effects too. We recently got our food allergy tests done and, have to do some elimination and, we try to be conscious about having a good balance, like you said. Since you've kind of learned about that, implemented that into your life, have you just felt better because you're super in touch with your fitness?
Yeah, I mean, I guess having the knowledge to do things plant-based or to eliminate certain things, I guess a lot of the food that I eat, I'm mostly made from scratch. So like if I'm using stock and things, I'm using stock that I made. And I'll usually batch cook stock and freeze it and then use it. You have more control with those things. So if I was trying to make like a pesto, you could do a pesto without cheese. Whereas when you're trying to buy it from the store, you have to deal with trying to buy that specific product without those ingredients. I guess I have more control to adjust that.
That's a great point. When I started to do the elimination to help myself feel better, I started looking at ingredients. Can I have this? Can I purchase this? Can I purchase that? And it was this big funny
Like
thing.
the answer is no all the time.
The answer is no. I can't have anything.
Yeah.
But it never occurred to me to like make it myself. I love that you have that in your toolbox. You know what you're doing.
It does. I think it gets overwhelming. I think when people are trying to eliminate certain things, because even, yes, when you're trying to buy just a spice mix or a paste or a sauce or, even a shredded cheese versus a slice, the things that you can find that are listed that might have eliminated and then can no longer eat. It's really frustrating.
Yeah. What's safflower oil? That's what I want to know. It's in everything, but I can't have it.
Yeah, I don't know. So funny.
So what are you doing now that's kind of like a culmination of all of these really great turns and twists in your life?
So it's a little weird right now with the quarantine and everything. So I think that I've just been playing around, I guess, more with the free time that I have with cooking projects that I had wanted. I really love fermentation, living foods. We talked about that a lot when I was in culinary school, and that was something that I was super jazzed about, excited to learn more about. And now they're just time-consuming projects sometimes, and they take up space.
For sure.
Yeah, so now that I've had some extra time on my hands, I've expanded my fermentation projects.
If you don't mind, how does that look in New York when you have limited space? Because that's one of the biggest concerns, right?
Yeah, and I feel mad at myself because I've had a gluten-free sourdough starter that I've been keeping going since last year, but
That's awesome.
I had been planning to start normal sourdough, and of course I started it now when everybody is making sourdough.
Everyone's doing it.
It's definitely interesting and a lot of finagling in a small New York apartment. I've been brewing kombucha for years, and my kombucha crock is up on top of my fridge back in the corner.
That's a good spot.
Everything has to be smaller batches. I think when you look at a lot of recipes, even for sourdough that I've been finding, I find recipes and it's to make 2 loaves at once. I don't need that, and I can't do that. And my oven is small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Like, what am I supposed to do with these loaves?
I don't know. And it's, a lot of pickling recipes are, gosh, I was looking at a fermented leek recipe and it was maybe like 8 leeks. That's a lot.
Oh, those are, yeah, they're big.
It's a restaurant style recipe. So it was to make a big batch. So I think it's been a process of figuring out what I have space for and scaling recipes down and just doing smaller batches of things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people want to get involved in those bigger cooking projects or these healthy eating projects that they haven't really had time for that they do now. But when you're in a confined space, that can be kind of difficult, to map out.
I'm still kind of getting used to, like, I have the space to do this stuff now, so I should. But I'm still in that mindset of I don't have the room for this.
Do you remember what kind of got you into that? Was it the healthy aspects? Because I think a lot of people don't know what the benefits are.
We had talked a lot about gut health and just kind of nurturing the microbiome that's in your gut, how having a healthy gut not only means, a regulated digestive system, but just an overall better well-being. And I guess I think I was a little bit aware of that before school, but maybe not completely.
It's important.
And just realizing how having a happy gut can do so many good things and, plays into your mental health and how your overall well-being is and your skin and just the way your body processes food. If there's an imbalance in the gut, you can run into lots of issues like leaky gut, or if you have an overgrowth of too much yeast and sugar, people will struggle with issues like candida. And so I guess just realizing how important it is to pay attention to the wellness of my gut made me really passionate.
We've been hearing that a lot. You laugh, but just about every person in our series on nutrition has talked about what an impact a healthy gut makes.
When we're having a conversation on gut health, a lot of people turn to supplements or, different ways to try to manage that. And I think one that people always forget about because we're in such a fast-paced world now is taking the time to do a cooking project and focusing on the foods that you eat and that you're putting into your body every day. And so I think that's a important lesson, and hopefully people, now that they have time on their hands, will be able to take on some of those projects.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it's makes it more approachable because especially when you talk about those supplements, it gets so expensive. And especially now with the way things are maybe more in high demand and harder to get a hold of, and maybe more people are struggling financially because of what's going on right now, buying, a supplement for everything that you would like to increase and, boost in your diet, it adds up so quick, but it's really cheap to start a ferment. You maybe just need filtered water and salt and some flavors, or salt, water, and flour. And then you can get a lot of those things for, a lot cheaper just in what you're eating and what you're consuming.
What are you working on right now, or what's one of your fermentation projects that you're really excited about? Or for someone who maybe has thought about starting something like that or has the time to do it now, where would you suggest they start?
One of the cookbooks I have that I love, by Sandor. He's like the father of fermentation. He's got a great mustache. He looks exactly like the father of fermentation. Good luck. It's got all kinds of things from pickling and fermenting vegetables to making strawberry wine to making kombucha to breads to all kinds of fermented like pancakes. There's all these things that I hadn't even thought of, or making your own yogurt or kefir. So those are fun. I guess when it comes to pickling versus like fermentation, I've been wanting to get more supplies to do more lacto fermenting, because like when you're pickling a lot of vegetables and you're adding the vinegar, you're not getting the live probiotics and enzymes because of the vinegar that you would if you lacto ferment
Ooh,
something.
that's interesting.
The supplies are a little different because you have to weigh things down because it has to be fully submerged. So you need like a pickle weight or like a heavy enough plate in a crock or something to hold it within the liquid. Then you're just working with salt and water. People get intimidated, but fermentation, as long as you have the basic measurements for your like liquid and salt and your ingredient, everything else, your variables and the ways you're flavoring things, and you can really scale it up, scale it down, and kind of customize things to how you want it. And there's a lot of open-endedness in a lot of his recipes, not in like a scary way, but in like if you don't have this onion, for substitutions and stuff right now, especially.
Yeah, that's so nice. And I think people can be a bit scared away by the vinegar flavor sometimes if they don't like pickles or, different things. And being able to have a book that shares a lot of unique recipes, I'm sure it would be really helpful too. Because, off the top of my head, when I think of fermented foods, I can only count them on one hand, I think. So
right.
I'm sure that's the case with a lot of people. So you have your big cooking projects, obviously, that you've been doing with your day. Do you have any tips for people who want to kind of make some healthy moves, or, I don't know how you feel about meal prepping or anything like that, but I know that you combine your love of food and also your love of fitness. And I know that there are a lot of other people out there who, need to start making some steps forward.
Yeah. And I think meal prepping is great. And it helps me a lot, between working full time, which is already working in food. It is a physical job. So you're on your feet, and then teach anywhere from 2 to 4 times a week. So it's a lot of running around. I don't have the time, and I'm sure a lot of people don't have the time to make full elaborate meals. And it's hard, if you're making things from scratch, to do everything every night, or, I need things I can pack and take. And I certainly can't do those things if I don't eat well enough. You feel it right away. I think I've been teaching a class and known like, oh, I didn't have enough water yesterday, or because I was working too much today, I didn't eat enough, and I can't lift as much this class as I did yesterday. And it's really like an immediate way to notice that I haven't fueled myself properly. For what helps me is getting a lot of like vegetables washed and prepped right away when I get them.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's a great tip. I do that too because otherwise people won't eat them, like in my family. So if I get grapes and all this fruits and vegetables and then everyone's too lazy to wash it, then it goes bad.
When one of your efforts to be more healthy is cooking things from scratch or cooking your meals at home, doing all the chopping and the prepping takes a huge chunk of your evening. And so if you can have those things ready and then just throw them into a stir fry or, whatever that may be, that's a huge help, at least for me. And if you're cutting things out like dairy and you want to make a dairy-free pesto, make it on the weekend so that throughout the week you can just toss it into whatever you're making and make it feel more special and delicious, but without having to rush or, yeah. That's also such great advice because I know that you are a busy New Yorker and you, like all of us, are just trying to do your best. And it can be hard to find the time or the space to, make time for yourself and for those projects. And so I know that to hear how you're doing it is really inspiring. We always talk about how we fill our cup because you can't support somebody else until you've kind of taken care of yourself. Is cooking kind of that for you, or do you have other things in your life that make you happy and make you feel special?
I think, yeah, cooking's got to be a big one for sure. I think, especially with doing a lot of stuff and working and being busy and stuff, I feel like my cup, it would not be very full, and then it'd be hard to give to anybody else because, like, especially when I'm down on food or I haven't eaten or taken care of my health or my needs, I'm irritable and I'm not sleeping well or I'm not happy, and I feel like I can see a direct reflection in my mood. So cooking, for me, it's really fun and inspiring, but it feels really good to be able to like nurture and take care of myself. And I feel like it helps me feel like I can be a better person for people when I've taken care of those needs. Cause I'm like the person in the Snickers commercial when I haven't eaten. I'm very noticeable.
Right? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, cooking is also filling other people's cup. I mean, when you serve someone else all that beautiful food or when you share something that you've made, that's really generous and it feels good to other people. So I love that cooking is both for you.
Yeah. I think food has such an amazing capacity to really like build community between people. Especially because libraries are closed right now with all the quarantine and everything. I've gone down a rabbit hole of looking at a lot of digital cookbooks, actually. It's been a weird balance. I was, before the quarantine, in a digital book club that had nothing to do with cookbooks, and now I'm in two. So between reading books for that book club, when I'm not doing that, I've been reading a lot of cookbooks. And it's been great because space is limited in an apartment, so I'm trying to only buy cookbooks that I really think I'm going to use the whole cookbook, or just not buying too many books. So I was already using the library a lot for other books, but it's been great for cookbooks too, to kind of test run if I think I would use a lot of it.
Yeah.
I love how cookbooks are so much more than I ever thought they were because I'm not obviously a chef or
A cooking person.
yeah. So I'm not a chef, but I love that they tell a story. A lot of cookbooks are wrapped around some sort of aspect, like you said, of community or of a culture. Would have never thought how enjoyable that really is, but I've been gifted a few cookbooks lately. It's really cool.
We've been cooking from the National Geographic cookbook Blue Zones, where they collect recipes from maybe the 15 cities or countries where people live the longest. And that's been really fascinating and a really great way for us to explore new healthy recipes and learn about why they're so healthy and where they come from and get in touch with different cultures too.
We actually keep making the same recipe over and over.
Yeah,
though.
I mean, I say that we look for all these new recipes, but really we just keep making the same
because it's so
stew.
delicious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody that is interested in sort of cooking more plant-based and more of like a whole food diet, I recently started looking through Amy Chaplin's new cookbook. She's an Australian chef, Whole Food Cooking Every Day. It made me smile a lot looking through that because it felt very much like Natural Gourmet Institute in a cookbook. And it's very much not just a cookbook, but it's like a guide.
That's cool.
And so it was really nice, I feel like, for somebody that's trying to get into eating more fresh foods and cooking for themselves and maybe batch cooking or meal prepping and things, and also trying to get away from recipes so strictly and maybe kind of learn how to improvise for themselves. It's a really nice book, and it had a lot of just great, I think, tips and tricks for somebody maybe first starting out, or maybe somebody that wants to expand on things that they've been making.
Cool.
I thought it was great, especially going into summer and spring and all the fresh produce. I really enjoyed looking through her book, and I feel like a lot of people will hopefully benefit from that.
Yeah, that's great advice because I think people don't even know where to look sometimes when they want to get started. And you don't always have everything in the recipe, or you buy it and you use it once and then never again. And so then also having a book like that where it teaches you how to have confidence in the kitchen and make your own choices is really nice too.
Yep.
Yes, I lack confidence in the kitchen. I think that's what I was trying to say. You know, so you have to follow that recipe and you feel so nervous about it. And then I see other people just throwing this or that in there. And I'm like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, especially it's nice to make things from scratch. She's got a lot of suggestions for making like your own nut butters and making your own tea mixes and things, especially if you're eliminating stuff. I thought it was a great base to share that information.
Yeah. And also have fun with it. Yeah. Really cool, Paige. So great chatting with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no.
Stay safe and healthy, and we'll talk to you soon.
You guys too. Bye.
Yeah, take care.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of Health That's Personal. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts for bonus episodes and new releases every Wednesday. The Health That's Personal podcast is produced by me, McKenna Udi, and hosted with the Phronesis Health Initiative team, Karen Shively and Sean Tingle. Special thanks to portrait artist Alex Sandor, musical contributor Bernie Ramke, and to our guests and experts for their kindness and bravery in sharing their stories each week.
Please listen, subscribe, engage, and send us topics we can explore that would help you on your journey.
Because health, it's personal.